Good evening. I'm presenting my approach to unoperated single ventricular and pulmonary stenosis. I'll start with an illustrative example. This is a 1-year, 9-month-old boy with a diagnosis of double inlet left ventricle, unrestricted bulboventricular foramen with moderate pulmonary stenosis, no AV valve regurgitation, and saturation of 86%. So he was planned for cardiac catheterization to look for pulmonary vascular resistance and PA pressure, and to plan accordingly. If PVR is high, he's for medical follow-up. If PVR is normal with high PA pressure, he goes for PA band. If both are normal, then we can plan a BDG and a PA band. So after cardiac catheterization, his PA pressure turned out to be 30/12, mean of 22. PVR is 0.88. So he has got a highish mean PA pressure, low PA diastolic pressure, and low PVR. So he was planned for BDG and PA banding. But then the parents said they wanted time to decide, and they came back after 8 years. Now he's 9.5 years old with a saturation of 84%. So in this situation, would you go for a conservative medical follow-up strategy, or would you plan a staged palliation? So the thing to understand about single ventricle is that it is subjected to high preload and afterload. High preload because both the pulmonary veins and the systemic veins are emptying into this same ventricle, and high afterload due to the fact that it is pumping into both great arteries. So they are more prone for systolic and diastolic dysfunction. And single ventricle is obviously inherently different from a biventricular balanced circulation, for example, corrected TGA VSTPS. If you look at the natural history of single ventricle, they keep getting into trouble as time advances. They can develop systemic outflow tract obstruction, progressive change in ventricular function or hypertrophy, AV valve regurgitation, left atrial hypertension, pulmonary outflow tract obstruction, deterioration in atrioventricular conduction, development of collaterals or arrhythmias. So the natural history is quite dismal, with a 1-year survival of 30%, 70% die by 15 years, and it is even worse if it is a single ventricular RV morphology, where 50% die by 4 years. There are very few patients who have been known to survive over 50 years of age, and all of them have been single ventricular LV morphology. So if you were to choose a best candidate for long-term survival, it would be obviously a single ventricular LV morphology with no left ventricular outflow obstruction, with moderate pulmonary stenosis, so that the pulmonary blood flow is balanced, there is no desaturation, there is no risk of developing pulmonary vascular occlusive disease, and there is no risk of LV volume overload. No AV valve regurgitation, and separate AV valves rather than common AV valve. A single ventricle severe PAH also has similar survival, but definitely more morbidity due to the fact that there is more chance of stroke and hemoptysis. So unoperated single ventricle, how do they fare? This is a study from Mayo Clinic, where they have studied 24 patients, median age of 56 years, over a period of 24 patients over a period of 30 years. So half of them were Eisenmenger syndrome, 13 were pulmonary stenosis. Most of them, almost all of them, had left ventricular morphology. So you find that the median age at death is 55 years and 50-year transplant-free survival is 65 years. But the caveat to remember here is that they are all naturally selected. You don't know how many have died before. You don't know from what percentage of single ventricles these 24 patients have made it till the age of 55 years. So what if you palliate? What if you decide to palliate? There is always, it's a well-known fact that eventually all Fontans will fail. Eventually, all of them will develop systemic venous hypertension. The ventricle is subjected to chronically reduced preload, and ultimately will develop suboptimal ventricular function. And there is always increasing PVR as years go by. But what is a good thing if you palliate? There is definitely an improvement in saturation. And if we are doing a palliation, we can also tackle associated issues like AV valve regurgitation, systemic outflow tract obstruction, pacing if there is any AV conduction defect, multi-site pacing if for ventricular dysfunction, ablation for arrhythmias. All this might end up in giving a better quality of life than if you don't palliate. And in the current era, there is a 25-year survival rate of 83% for Fontan. Why do you have to do Fontan? Why don't you stop at Glenn as a definitive or long-term palliation? So many studies have gone on to see whether Glenn is good as a definitive palliation. And in this study of 70 patients, they found that Glenn fails as a strategy for definitive palliation, but it may be good for long-term palliation. But as you can see, the freedom from intervention or death is only 20% at 10 years. This is another study of 227 patients where they have studied Glenn for long-term palliation, and they have found that 8-year survival is not that great. It is 74%, and poor prognostic indicators were dominant RV, high PVR, and prior palliation with a PA band. This is our data from Sri Chitra. We have taken 27 patients more than 10 years of age who are unpalliated, naturally selected patients who have gone on directly for Glenn. Median age is 16 years. Most of them were single ventricular LV morphology. We have followed them for median of 8 years. 12 have gone on to complete TCPC. Few are waiting for completion TCPC, and few have been found to be not suitable for completion of TCPC. But there has been no mortality in this subset. And we've also looked at the data of older patients who have gone on for Fontan completion. We had 21 patients above the age of 16 with a median age of 18 years. We have fenestrated most of them. There were 2 early mortalities, but the rest of them seem to be doing reasonably fine. Why don't you do a single stage Fontan? Would you go for a staged palliation in all cases? This was a large study from AIMS. We looked at that aspect. They've had 105 patients more than 10 years old who have gone on for single stage Fontan. There were 10% early deaths and 6% late deaths. But there was a relatively high incidence of pleural effusion, arrhythmias, and thromboembolism in the early postoperative period. The survival is quite good at 85% at 10 years. Our data, we are Sri Chitra protocol is mostly in favor of staged palliation. We have had very few patients who went in for single stage Fontan. Only 17 patients of a total of 126 patients. Half of them were single ventricular left ventricular morphology. All of them except one had fenestration. One died in the early postoperative period. 2 were lost to follow-up, and 1 developed Fontan failure. This is the child that we didn't do a fenestration. She had quite reasonable hemodynamics before the Fontan procedure, but within few weeks after the Fontan, she deteriorated. You can see this is a pre-Fontan X-ray, and this is a post-Fontan X-ray after 4 months. So she developed significant ventricular dysfunction. We presume it is due to significant volume shifts after Fontan. So poor prognostic indicators in a single stage Fontan have been postulated to be high LV and diastolic pressure, high mean PA pressure, AV valve regurgitation, hypoplastic left hearts, especially aortic and mitral atresia, and the heterotaxy subsets. And post-PA band in various studies have shown to have poor prognosis. This was an 18-year-old who came to our OPD yesterday. So she was saturating 62%. She was being evaluated for the first time, and she was found to have a tricuspid atresia, a single ventricular LV morphology with good ventricular function, no AV valve regurgitation. So far, so good. But then when we look at the PAs, they are really hypoplastic. So for the 9-year-old boy that I discussed earlier, we have planned to do a repeat cath to assess PA pressures, pulmonary vascular resistance, and LV and diastolic pressures. And if all hemodynamics are favorable, he's being planned for a staged palliation. But for the 18-year-old girl with poor PA anatomy, we are not going to take her to the Fontan pathway. We are going to do a palliative BT shunt. What would you do if a 20-year-old presented with any of these diagnoses: single ventricular RV morphology, tricuspid atresia, unbalanced AV canal defect, heterotaxy? As you know that 3 of them are very bad subsets, whether they are naturally, if we don't do anything, whether they are unpalliated or whether they are palliated. So what I would suggest is that if the hemodynamics are all right, staged univentricular palliation is favorable. If pulmonary vascular resistance and LVEDP is favorable, would be the answer to all these subsets. And decision on single stage Fontan is based on institutional policy. It's likely to fare worse, especially in older children or adolescents. And unfavorable hemodynamic data or poor PA anatomy calls for conservative management. So to conclude, in single ventricle with pulmonary stenosis, there is no one-size-fits-all approach. Thank you.
So do we have any comments from the cardiologist before the surgeons get into the fray? Dr. Krishnamurthy?
No, it's our study.
Okay. So I think I'll mention our approach and then ask Chinnaswamy for his comments. Our approach generally is, as I said, primarily for most Fontans is for stage, provided they come in time. So that means if the patient is presenting for the first time below 3 years of age, then we'd go down the staging pathway, which is the Glenn, followed by a Fontan completion, which is an extracardiac Fontan. But if they come beyond 4 or 5 years of age, then our aim would be to try and do a primary Fontan. The older patient, also, if the pulmonary arteries are adequate, if PVRI is low, ventricular function is adequate, and there's no AV valve regurgitation, then we proceed with primary Fontan. with or without a fenestration. Again, I'm not too keen on fenestrations unless there is a hemodynamic instability in the period while coming off bypass. On the other hand, if the patient requires something else done, like for example, a repair of an AV valve, or if the patient has a left ventricular or ventricular dysfunction, then even an older patient, I might stage through a Glenn, and we've done that. But by and large, we would like to avoid that if possible, because Fontan following a Glenn in an older patient, again, is technically a little more difficult and challenging than a Fontan conversion in a younger patient. Dr. Chinnaswamy.
Sir, it's basically depends upon actually at what age the patient actually presents with. Most of us, in fact, they usually present quite early in life and actually will go for stage palliation. So those who present with present late, maybe 7 years, 7 years later or so, and if the PA pressures are okay, I think that this patient should be candidates for straight away for Fontan procedure. So it all what we do is it's all the age at which they present. They present at 4 or 5 months of age or 6 months of age with low saturation, with a good size single ventricle physiology, with a good size PA anatomy. We directly going for a bidirectional Glenn and completion Fontan maybe at 6, 7, 8 years of age, depending on the symptoms. That would be the ideal age. If suppose they present 8, 10 years of age with single ventricle physiology, PA being okay for Fontan, go for directly for primary Fontan. So I think this should be what is the approach what actually we follow. And of course, I think maybe the one of the case what they presented 20 years of age with so many comorbid factors with common AV valve at 20 years of age. I think those things ideally should be left alone. Doing BDJ followed by a completion Fontan later age, I think it's going to complicate more than actually leaving them alone. That's what I actually feel.
I think we should allow Dr. Prakash to make his presentation.
Proceed with the second case scenario. Dr. Prakash present his approach to the management of unoperated single ventricle with PS.
First of all, thank you, sir. First of all, at the outset, I want to thank the PCSI for giving me an opportunity to present our experience on this difficult but not rare subset of single ventricle with pulmonary stenosis in a grown-up congenital. First of all, I would be talking about being a referral center for the congenital heart diseases. We generally frequently come across this late presentation, generally in the second decade, for a single ventricle pulmonary stenosis. So the basic causes of late presentation in the medical or hemodynamic reasons would be a complete mixing at the atrial level. QP or the effective QP is reasonably good for them to tide over probably the first decade. There is no significant AV valve regurgitation, and with a significantly good or good ventricular function. In such cases, saturation in the first decade will be in the high 80s. So obviously there will be no very clear cyanosis. Grade 1 clubbing may be missed by a general pediatrician. And in a cranky baby who will not allow you to examine, especially when he's not well, the murmur is questionable, especially I'm talking about a pediatric setup. So they generally live in the best curve of the natural history for the defect, and hence the symptoms will be very minimal. And this is true for the first decade. As Dr. Deepa has already talked about the natural and the modified natural history of such subsets. And when they do present or come to the notice of the pediatrician, generally they're in the class 2. So by the time they're in second decade of life, they're more cordial to examination. So that's how they are generally picked up. And we'll not talk about the non-medical or social causes of late presentation. And in such cases, whatever you have seen are generally they present when the child is in probably class 3 or class 4 altogether. So I have a few cases in such scenarios. So when they do present, why do they eventually present, especially in the second decade? So there is progressive increase in the pulmonary stenosis, which gradually reduces the QP. And there is a demand versus supply mismatch because they outgrow the natural QP they had. So probably this both happens together gradually over time. And this reduction in the saturation leads to symptoms causing hypoxemia-related ventricular dysfunction, which propagates the AV valve regurgitation. Once they enter this vicious cycle of dysfunction regurgitation, there is no end to it, and the progress of the symptoms will be relatively faster in the second decade. So the aim of intervention when it comes to cardiologists will be to improve the functional class and prepare for a possible staged single ventricle palliation. So how do we improve the symptoms is by improving the QP, thus improving the saturation, symptomatic class, and assuming that the ventricular dysfunction was because of hypoxemia, we expect an improvement in the ventricular function as well. So the armamentarium of intervention will be a BT shunt, PDA stent if there is a PDA, Glenn or primary Fontan. So also the second possibility of an intervention would be in a single ventricle would be offloading the ventricle, which is by a Glenn or a Fontan. The parameters which we assess generally will be saturations at rest and exercise if they can exercise. Echocardiographically, the most important things to assess would be AV valve regurgitation, ventricular function assessment, and the PI anatomy. Cardiac cath gives us a more invasive hemodynamic assessment of the single ventricle circulation in terms of pulmonary artery pressures, end-diastolic pressures, and the transpulmonary gradient. So what are the interventional armamentarium which is available to us? Is a BT shunt or a PDA stent, which may be part of a staged palliation, and in some cases it may be the final palliation. This can be opted when there is more than mild AV valve regurgitation or more than mild ventricular dysfunction, or if the PI anatomy is not suitable for Glenn or Fontan. BD Glenn or primary Fontan, that again, as already discussed, it is institutional based policy whether to offer staged single ventricle palliation or primary Fontan. So this generally will be in an ideal scenario, and I don't expect this to be in an ideal scenario in a second decade or a grown-up congenital in single ventricle PS. So in such cases, PI anatomy will be good, PA pressures, EDPs and transpulmonary gradient will be in the expected range, which we in pediatrics we offer for a single ventricle palliation, no significant AV valve regurgitation with a good ventricular function. Last but not the least, the cardiac transplantation and the palliative medical follow-up as well. So in the next three prototype cases, I will be discussing a similar subset, that is the tricuspid atresia or hypoplastic right heart syndrome. So all three cases presented to us in the late second decade of life. So jumping to the case one, it was an 18 years old girl, class 4 dyspnea on exertion since nearly a year, and she was wheelchair bound. She was on follow-up elsewhere. She first time presented to us in class 4. She was refused surgical palliation at multiple institutes and was referred to us for cardiac transplantation. She was deeply cyanosed and clubbed. It was difficult for her to get down from the wheelchair onto the Ecolab bed. So saturations were 55 in room air, and there was no significant improvement with oxygen. Echocardiographic diagnosis was hypoplastic right heart with pulmonary atresia, and we could see a tiny duct which was supplying the pulmonary circulation with a moderate AV valve regurgitation and ventricular dysfunction. CT scan was done to confirm the pulmonary circulation. It was confluent PS with 13 millimeter each. There was no distortion, and surprising finding was that main pulmonary artery was good sized, and the PDA was seen supplying the pulmonary arteries. So the options in front of us was a BT shunt. We spoke to the surgeon. He was, because it was a little obese child, sternotomy would have been required for a BT shunt. He talked about post-operative issues, especially the bleeding. So since the PDA was supplying the PS, we opted for a PDA stenting. So again, we could see that it was a progressive increase in the right ventricular outflow tract obstruction, which caused the decrease in QP and her symptoms. So it was a hypoplastic right heart syndrome. We could approach the stenting from the femoral artery because it was a big child. After we put a 9 millimeter peripheral stent in there, and she went in from class 4 to class 2 by the end of the procedure. And I just called up today, father, 4 years since the procedure, child is still in class 2, but they have not turned up for the follow-up ever since. Case 2 is a 17-year-old male with known CHD since infancy, but lost to follow-up. Again, comes in class 4, wheelchair bound in 6 months, 60% root layer saturation. He had a dextrocardia with tricuspid atresia 1B and a non-confluent branch PS with PDA supplying the LPA, which was confirmed on the CT scan. Again, the palliative options discussed were BT shunt and PDA stent, with the understanding that this would be the final palliation for the child. Here in the angiogram, you could see that it was a vertical PDA with supplying only the left pulmonary artery. Again, from the femoral approach, we could end up doing the PDA stent, and this is just 2 months before the child presently is in class 2. Case 3 is a 17-year-old male with class 2 NYHA. Saturation on room air was 75% and echo diagnosis of tricuspid atresia 1B with a good LV function and good PA anatomy. The options discussed were BD Glenn versus primary Fontan, and hence cardiac catheterization was done. All the parameters except the borderline PA pressures were there. All the anatomical parameters were all within the acceptable range for a Fontan completion. So as per the institutional policy, we offered him a staged palliation. So we went ahead with a stage 1 interventional Fontan with a plan to do a completion interventional Fontan after 6 months or a year. So this is the flowchart probably I would use for grown-up congenital single ventricle, considering that the PA pressures and PA pressures by itself are normal. If the ventricular function and pulmonary artery anatomy will be the first things I would consider. If both are good, then Glenn Fontan would be an option. If one of those is a borderline, probably I would stage palliate him with a BT shunt. And if there is improvement in one or both, whichever is abnormal, we would turn into staged Glenn and Fontan. And if there is dysfunction, significant ventricular dysfunction and poor PA anatomy, which in most cases which present in the end of second decade, we offer either a BT shunt, and if PA anatomy is not suitable, definitely it will be a medical follow-up. So if PA anatomy is good with a dysfunction, then probably transplant can be an option. So concluding, to be very clear, I'm very wary of class 1 and class 4 presentation in Guj. Anything more than mild ventricular dysfunction, probably BT shunt would be the first choice, with or without any significant AV valve regurgitation, because it can be taken care of later, and reassess for improvement in the ventricular function to bridge him to Glenn or Fontan. My order of importance would be, first would be a ventricular function, then PA anatomy, and probably the least would be AV valve regurgitation. And I will always remember the difference between the presentation natural history in the Guj versus a pediatric presentation. Spectrum of anatomy is very variable, so is the management options. So decision is based on individual anatomy and hemodynamics and the institutional policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Prakash. I think you fairly well summarized it. My only issue